Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. ULTRAKILL's last full layer, Fraud, has finally been released, and with it comes a lot of crazy new stuff that completely blew me, and seemingly everyone, completely away. Now that we have gone through the majority of the final act, Godfist Suicide, I can safely say that the devs have done the seemingly impossible task of making easily one of the greatest games in the FPS genre and making it better and better with each passing update. Take that, Epic Games. Anyway, with the bulk of Act 3 now behind us, I'd like to take the time to explain why these devs need to be given more of whatever they were smoking. And with that, let's begin our descent a step below hell. Hot off the blood-filled city of Heresy, surely violence would be much worse. I can imagine what you might be thinking. Blood, or agony, torture, and war. But as we walk out, we see white. The world is white, blank, desolate. I know, this caught me off guard when I first saw it too, because it seems so eerie. Like something or someone had come through and cleansed this place of life, leaving it sterile and empty. The music too complements this, being slow and cautious, like it warns you against every step. Crosses are strewn everywhere around this maze, so maybe it's meant to be heaven? We know heaven to be violent in this world, so maybe this is what's left of it. As we move around, the world opens and closes doors around us. One room is filled with these creatures with ceramic masks and bloody appendages that make up their body, standing still as a statue. For some reason, they decide to stand in, JoJo poses. Navigating around, we are able to find a hallway that leads up to a large cross with a tree and a heart. This symbolism is plastered everywhere around this level. It must mean something. It looks like a circulatory system, so it's safe to say it has something to do with blood. Anyway, down the hall is a button with a Greek letter Alpha on it that opens up one of the doors at the start of the level. Heading back reveals a new room with all of these statue-looking things, and a checkpoint. God, I hope they don't move. Okay. Now that my cortisol is sufficiently spiked, we move back to the room where we found the red pedestal. Oh my god! These are mannequins. Brand new, shiny demons of the 7th layer. God, I hate them so much. They're tanky, they're fast, and they will beat the crap out of you if you're not faster. And they crawl around like... These guys make up the bulk of the next few rooms, with new environments like a bridge and a stairwell that force you to understand the nature of their creepy crawliness. The only good thing I can say about these guys is they feel great to kill because they stopped doing their freaky crawling animation. Ugh. Also of note are these strangely photorealistic skulls used instead of the usual pixelated ones. This is probably only done because the red would stand out, but it's also the only layer with a custom doorstop. With those out of the way, the rooms open back up and lead around to more of the creepy things. But before we can fight, something else gets to them first. What the hell was that? Man, this level doesn't really get tired of spiking my blood pressure. Anyway, whatever that was, it seemed to open up a new way out of the area, so may as well follow it. This next room goes to show how the mannequins work with other enemies, and that is, unfortunately, very well. They're quick and pretty hard to hit, but they're good at hitting you. They force you to keep your attention split, making these simple fights pretty difficult. The developers' twisted minds never fail to impress me. And with that behind us now, the room opens back up to the stairwell that we were at before. Welcome to a gameplay element that sucks absolutely everywhere except when ULTRAKILL does it. Backtracking! I'll admit, the level does get a little confusing at times, but it's called the Garden of Forking Paths. Like, what do you expect? It's gotta fork somewhere. Anyway, let us reuse the blue skull key from earlier to make it through the last door. Down here are some more fights that really push your knowledge of the new enemies even further. They even throw in a mind flayer, because they hate you. This room really takes the things that you want to pay attention to number to the max. Mind flayers, virtues, drones, stalkers, and these new mannequins force you on your toes like never before. It really explores how these new enemies will fit into new fights, and for that I respect it. Again, it loops back on itself to use the key, then onward to more dark areas. Maybe the devs do hate us. Surprisingly, there are actually no enemies here, but the music cuts out and it's creepy as hell. But it leads to a cart. A cart. There's a rail section! Yes, This part is super cool. Fighting off waves of enemies in such a weird and unique environment is one of the reasons I love this game so much. Like, look at this. Does your arena shooter do this? I bet you it doesn't. This section seems pretty relaxed though, because like not too much could come at you at once, right? Oh my god. Hi. This is a completely normal cow with a hammer. Someone call OSHA. This is a really cool fight. Your standing area is so limited, but it's the only real way to hit the Minotaur's soft underbelly. You constantly have to trade safety for damage, and it's done really well. The Minotaur will even limit your standable ground even further, how rude, and also by smashing the cart with its oddly flesh panopticon looking hammer. Unfortunately, damaging company property makes this platform unsafe for workers. Fortunately, OSHA violations are best delivered via railgun, and with a couple well-placed coins we can send this guy back to wherever he came from. Well, good thing we're done with him. The end of the level looks like a waiting area for a subway, which I guess is to be expected. That was about as clean as an average trip on a New York subway. But it looks like the end door is right here, so not again! Yeah, so it wasn't done to facing company property. It looks pretty beat up by the fight on the railway, but it still has some will to fight. Strange. I suppose this thing is hardwired for violence. Anyway, this fight goes about as well as the last. It's weakened, and while it was strong, it's not anywhere near as strong as we are. If you can be quicker, then strength was never a question. Let's put this thing out of its misery once and for all. Well, that was weird. Did it reach for the sky as it was dying? How could it have known the sky from all the way down here? Man, this level is so strange. With this level behind us, we can actually read up about the terminal entry for the Minotaur. Wait, what? It's blank? Not blank, redacted. Scrolling down a bit reveals the entry, crossed out and in red text. The Minotaur, one of the oldest known surviving demons, was sculpted by as a gift for the then judge of hell, Minos, in an attempt to form some kind of rapport. Though its creator considered it beautiful, a personalized monument of death and despair, Minos was terrified of the gross caricature of his past mistakes and cast it into the Garden of Forking Paths, hoping it would never be seen again. Now the Minotaur is old and its body failing, falling apart, running blind through the labyrinth in a desperate attempt to break out. Its only desire to see the sky for one last time. What? Huh? Why is it like this? I can't believe the Minotaur was in the Epstein files. But seriously, who or what is attempting to hide this? How are they able to edit the text in the terminal? They seem to even be able to edit the boss bar to strike through the boss's name. My guess is that it's somehow Minos is doing, as he wanted to hide the thing in the labyrinth, never to have it be seen again. He probably found some computer science students down in the lust layer. Looks like it's where most of them are gonna end up anyway. Also, who made this thing? Its name is completely redacted, not just crossed out. It's a 4-letter word followed by 6 letters. It could be hell itself, or king, followed by whoever the P3 boss is. But I don't think any human king could create something so awful. We have been able to theorize that hell is alive and watching, and it could be very capable of making something like this, so that's my bet. Side note, a Minotaur in a labyrinth probably rings a bell for anyone who's read Percy Jackson before. This thing is straight out of Greek myth, and adapted beautifully to fit the thematic elements here. Gold sticker to you, Hakita. Alright, surely the next level can't be as crazy. 8-2 starts out in a room pretty similar to the last one, but it looks like we've been descended even further. It's way darker and less barren than the last one. Real suffering has happened here. Also, there's a random obstacle course that teaches you how to use the new whiplash switches, so that's nice. Anyway, more hallways to tune. Oh god damn it. I am writing an angry email to the developers right now that they will be hearing from my lawyer if there are any more jump scares. Anyway, this is the classic ULTRAKILL introduce a normal enemy as a boss maneuver. The Gutterman looks different than normal though. It's a big, bulky machine, big enough to even be piloted. It's got a large metal shield that blocks shots, meaning it has to be destroyed. Fortunately, V1 is on some crazy trend cycle and can break it with a fisting from the Knuckle Blaster. The Gutterman also wields a rapid-fire Gatling gun, which trains on your position more as it shoots longer. These guys are pretty tough, but fortunately, their shield will heal you once it's broken. After killing him like a video game enemy, we move forward into Great Britain! This is the war. This is the war. The final war. The ground here seems to be made up of this black rock that looks like it was made of human limbs. And carving through it is the River Phlegethon, a river full of fiery blood. This is more what I expected, honestly. I can't believe that ULTRAKILL had created a one-to-one creation of the nicest day in Birmingham.
First, yeah, I live in Smethwick, Birmingham. If you want the fucking brawl, come down Smethwick Hospitality. I'll come out my house and I'll break your fucking legs.
After this fight, the British get absolutely destroyed and we keep pushing forward. This level focuses on feeling like an open battlefield, fighting anywhere and killing anything. It is super open and you can skip a lot of it if you want to, but minimizing killing is suboptimal for gains. Nothing too interesting happens until this altar room with the red skull. This is where we are first introduced to the biggest bastard in the whole game, the gutter tank. Very beefy with a rocket launcher and a big fist to swing at you like it's robot Mike Tyson. These things are tough to beat because they are the ultimate zoners, with a rocket to deny the air and a punch and a landmine to stop you from moving on the ground. The only redeeming thing is that the rockets can be used against them, using a magnet or the freeze frame rocket launcher to stop them in their tracks. This skull is used at the end of another train station that we have to fight swarms of robots to recapture. At the end is a large bomb, and once lowered onto the cart is shipped back to the station to do some rapid disassembly. This final room in the level opens up to a room full of massive bookshelves. There are more gutter tanks within, making this a really tough choke point for the P rank. This room is not easy, and it took me a fair few tries to beat it the first time. But this is a really weird thing to put at the end of a level. Like, why do we go through all this effort to retrieve a bomb to enter a library? Maybe the answer is somewhere in the level. Looking around leads us to a book, recounting the story of someone trying to escape the labyrinth of violence. It reads, "Something has happened. It has been days since our reconnaissance has seen a single angel. We know not the cause, but we recognize the chance. We have hid underground from the chaos up above for far too long. Without the watchful eyes of the angels, we will brave the labyrinth and find a way out of this place. If you are one who seeks shelter, take heed. The archive is trapped. A single misstep and reprogrammed protectors will activate. Write these instructions down and follow them carefully if you wish to take refuge on the other side." What? Maze instructions? Maybe this will be able to lead us out of the level without triggering the gutter tanks, and sure enough, it does. This detail goes to show what hell is really like for things that aren't V1. Like, those gutter tanks would lead to instant death for anything lesser than a Supreme machine. It's a dangerous and terrible place, and it's good to know that people are taking advantage of the Angel's absence. Anyway, now that we're through, let's read up on these enemies. The terminal has a lot to say about these things. They say the Guttermen were created early on in the final war. They were airdropped into enemy trenches and served as impenetrable, unkillable trench clearers. But the researchers faced a problem. The blood couldn't be kept fresh outside the body to be used as a normal fuel. So they did what they saw fit. They put a living person inside, gave them just enough life support to stay alive, conscious, and in terrible agony. Welded inside, they would slowly bleed out over time to power the machine. The public was told that these were volunteer patriots, but they were actually deserters, injured returnees, or even prisoners of war. The funniest and most terrible part of this is that Hell itself saw this and thought it was such a good idea that it made the mannequins. Mannequins began their life as sinners attempting to escape the labyrinth that is found in 7-1. With no angels holding them in, they thought they just had to escape the maze. However, the maze was alive and watching. It would contort and change until the sinners would have to stop and sleep when the metamorphosis began. Their limbs were torn off and ripped apart, and their shadow remains would be shoved into hollow statues, allowing them to live again, but with no control over their body. Hell sees their life as a gift, and now they can relive their punishment eternally, uncontrollably. The gutter tank was designed as a countermeasure to the Guttermen, its large explosive arsenal designed to counter the heavy armor. The creation of the gutter tank sparked the last phase of the final war, machine-on-machine warfare. This escalation would continue as more advanced machines were created, likely resulting in all the machines we know of in the ULTRAKILL world. That leads us nicely into the third level. This level introduces something new, and somehow just as terrible as everything that came before. A forest, yet all the trees are strangely human. These are victims of suicide. Reborn as trees, they live still, and feel excruciating pains as their limbs regrow and fall off again. Like the mannequins, it's a terrible fate, and even more terrible is So this is the Tree of Life. How macabre that it's fueled by death. This level is built around going to 3 of these trees and fueling them with the blood of the enemies. The trees are also accompanied by this highly unsettling text. It's not like V1 is speaking, as we saw what that looked like in 4-4, so it can be safely assumed that it's hell itself speaking to us. Uniquely, enemies fight each other in this level, meaning that we aren't the only ones hearing hell speak. The atmosphere here is truly haunting. The stars glimmer lifelessly in the sky, and the music sounds so painful and melancholic, it wouldn't be out of place at some twisted funeral. This level really leans into the tragedy of its setting, giving the Forest of Suicide the justice that it deserves. The last fight in here is also super cool, as it's a giant open room with chaos unfolding all around you as everything tries to feed the tree. It's a really unique and interesting encounter, and it's super memorable. With that level complete, now's also a good time to mention this book found in 7-1. It reads, "The unending halls of the garden. Ah, so dutifully decorated by the cross, the symbol that the angels use for the tree of life. They praise their beloved Father, who had planted it and filled us with the dew of its leaves and the nectar of its fruit. That which gives us life courses through our veins. For you, however, are truth. The beautiful guts and gorgeous bone yearn to be shown and seen. Splayed under the divine cross of the tree of life, we pay tribute to it through the art of violence. The world is your canvas, so take up your brush and paint the world red." Now that we've seen these trees of life in the flesh, we really have painted the world red. We have torn through wave after wave, turning body into guts, bone, and most importantly, fuel. We aren't the only thing down here that wants blood anymore. It goes to illustrate how blood is just more than some bodily fluid, but the dew of its leaves and the nectar of its fruit. We are not just the cause of violence, but the result of it. Our sole purpose is to rend blood from body. It seems that hell has taken some interest. Alright, time for a kick-ass boss fight. This is the Earth Mover, and it's actually not the first time you've seen it. In 7-2 and 7-3, it is seen getting closer to us, looming in the distance. Its presence is noticeable, but just out of reach. Well, now it's got a giant rail cannon pointed right at us, so it's best we get moving. The level itself is the body of the Earth Mover, a massive giraffe-like machine boasting a shield generator and a lightning rod of a rail cannon. It lets out a roar when it sees us, but it is stopped by something that we don't have time to talk about right now. Climbing upwards, we move from platform to platform, and we see something kind of odd. Are these houses? Oh, never mind that for now. There's a switch up ahead that opens up these platforms that vents its blood out and lets us cross. Jeez, I guess this thing would need a lot of power. Where did they even get it all from? Pushing through even further reveals more city-like structures, and on the back of it, it even has a little mini-boss in the form of a security system. The security system features rockets, mortar shells, lasers, and homing projectiles, a lot of which we've seen on other machines. After dismantling the defense system, a little escalator opens up to what looks like some kind of maintenance shaft. Entering it reveals... Ooh boy, yeah, it's about to get crazy. The inside of the Earth Mover is made of flesh. How? How is this possible? What kind of unholy force would be needed to do something like this? Also, there's a timer on my screen, so we best get going. Killing the idols before we get flushed out opens up a large shaft leading to the head of the creature. After some obstacles, we reach the brain. And yes, I mean the brain. Fleshy, pink, and wrinkly. Goodness, this implies so much that we don't have time to talk about right now. The lasers try to stop us, but this is what we are made for. Tearing the brain to shreds begins yet another countdown, so again we gotta get moving. Going back the way we came reveals more enemies. Time is running out. The horde of dangerous enemies seem too overwhelming, but what's it to you, Angel of Death?
This is the only way it could have ended. War no longer needed its ultimate practitioner. It had become a self-sustaining system. Man was crushed under the wheels of a machine created to create the machine to crush the machine. Samsara cut sinew and crushed bone. Death without life. Null Ouroboros. All that remained is war without reason. A magnum opus. A cold tower of steel. A machine built to end war is always a machine built to continue war. You were beautiful, outstretched like antennas to heaven. You were beyond your creators. You reached out for God, and you fell. None were left to speak your eulogy. No final words, no concluding statement. No point. Perfect closure. This is the only way it should have ended.
This is the text of a book found on the back of the Earth Mover, presumably written by Hell. There's a lot to unpack here. The Earth Mover was the pinnacle of the arms race, a weapon so powerful and so destructive it rendered the Earth uninhabitable. The homes on the back of the creature were really the only place left to survive. Running off both blood and the sun, the Earth Mover was more than a force of nature. It was a tool for divine fury. Cities, countries, and continents were reduced to sinless ash. Fires raged. How do you even fight something so massive and so powerful? Well, the terminal mentions one final development in the final war. The smaller, more agile machines were the only thing able to slip inside and destroy it from the inside out. Yes, this finally answers our original purpose, to destroy the greatest destroyer mankind has ever designed. And it makes sense. V1's blood-absorbing plates could use the literal oceans of blood these things took to operate. It's the perfect environment. Also, if the inside of the Earth Mover was flesh and gore, it's not far-fetched to say that we are the same way. Less than living, but more than machine. Another hint to this fact is found in the death screen, where V1 tells us, "I don't want to die," over and over. To make you feel bad, I guess. The endless war fought by the Earth Movers would eventually cause enough soot and ash to build up in the atmosphere to completely block out the sun, causing what is now known as the Long Night. And because the Earth Movers needed the sun to function, they ceased to move. The corpses of these titans stood now as testaments to how close mankind was to eradication. This finally seemed to get it into people's heads that it wasn't sustainable to fight like this, leading the 200-year-long war to end with a quiet whimper, leading to the beginning of the new peace. Layer 7 is truly art, which is why it took so long to explain it. I'm talking about a video game where a funny blue security camera kills stuff and goes really fast. Who knew it got so serious? But anyway, I would like to leave this chapter of the video off with a few words. It is really scary to think that the awful power of the Earth Mover is dwarfed by our real-life atomic weapons. To think, if an all-out war were to break out today, the outcome would not be too dissimilar to how it plays out here. A machine built to end war is always a machine built to continue war. So I ask you this, dear viewer. Is the violence in our nature just the image of our maker? Are we not good enough? Are we not brave enough to think of something greater than the violence in our nature? Next stop, fraud. Fraud and violence are not too dissimilar, but with a few key tonal shifts. Our focus drifts from mankind to hell and the heavens, and the crimes they have committed. 8-1 opens up to what looks like a hotel. There's an empty living room with the TV blaring the image of a hallway, which we can actually walk through. Yep, we're the girl from The Ring apparently. Anyway, this move sets the tone just so well, and it clearly shows that this level's about to get weird. Only a few steps into this new hallway and space begins to shift and contort and bring the checkpoint closer to us. Okay. Beyond the door reveals this statue of what looks like a biblically accurate angel, and upon closer inspection, reveals one. This is a Providence, a very fast lesser angel that was sent into heaven to scout and look for Gabriel after we slammed him out in heresy. They aren't allowed to keep their sight in hell, but broke their sacred oath with the Father in hopes of finding the lost angel. They are surprisingly tanky for something so quick, but some well-placed shots with the rocket launcher are quite effective into ripping them into shreds. In their place, they leave a soul orb, which when hooked provides a full heal and explodes, leading to some really clutch moments when fighting. Leading through any of the doors reveals a hallway with some messed up gravity. The level really does seem to be messing with you as the player directly. The real hell here is playing this with any kind of motion sickness. A bit further down, we drop into a room with a quite strange statue. A lion with a sun in its mouth, with the words, "Creation of the Tree of Life," written on the bottom. This statue is a likely depiction of God as the sun and hell as the lion. Quick editor's note, this statue is also found in the limbo layer, so it likely means that the lion is actually God and the sun is humanity, which this means that the statue in Fraud would imply that they are together because of the Tree of Life, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, just something to think about. The statue saying creation of the tree of life instead of the creation of hell is, well, unexpected. In Testament 3, God says that he created hell and could no longer unmake it. Maybe this hell he's talking about isn't actually hell, but is the creation of the tree of life. This statue would certainly point to that anyway. Maybe the tree is the true evil force and not hell. We know that blood is the essence of the Father, and the tree of life is like a twisted version of that idea. It wouldn't be too crazy to assume that's where hell got its power from, too. Just some food for thought. As we press forward, the level continues this theme of non-Euclidean rooms. There's even this infinite room that becomes sort of a motif later in the layer. It really goes to show that this layer is designed to be confusing. This place doesn't even seem to look like a punishment, but the confusing layout would definitely cause people to slowly lose their minds. Anyway, once we finish up on the funky stairs, we emerge into this room depicting the 4 archangels: Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Phanuel. This is a major reveal, and finally give faces to most of the other archangels in this universe. Michael seems to be some kind of counselor or bureaucrat, with his robes and sun-like halo. If God was depicted as the sun on that statue, this could be a hint of Michael's closeness to the Father. His title is God's Wisdom, so it would make sense if he was the guy calling the shots after the disappearance of the Father. On his right is Raphael, God's Strength. He has a flower-like halo, with a strikingly similar appearance to the Mistloon skins from Valorant. He seems like someone who could put up a serious fight. As God's Strength, he may be someone we need to fight down the line. Next up, our favorite bi-curious angel, Gabriel, God's Will. He has been fighting us since the very beginning, as he had to fulfill his role as the judge of hell when God went missing. On a side note, when we tore Gabriel a new one at the end of Act 2, he seemed to have a serious character change, and this could be a nod to breaking God's will. On the far right, we have God's Patience, Phanuel. This C-3PO looking dude has the coolest looking halo I've ever seen, with a triangle above his head possibly representing the Holy Trinity. And lastly, nothing. A part of this painting was torn off, leaving a desecrated gap in its place. The gap was most likely Lucifer, who is theorized to be God's kindness. We know that Lucifer was cast into hell by God in Testament 4, with God regretting it immediately after. Maybe, in his anguish, he ripped the portrait down so he didn't have to look the fallen angel in the face. This omission is likely a nod to how God lost arguably his most important trait, his love, which perhaps led him to his death and or disappearance, or even to the final war itself. Well, if we get depictions of the archangels, do we finally get to see what God looks like? After some more weird level shenanigans, we can open up a passage down to some kind of old cellar. Down there, we find... This freaked me out so bad when I first saw it. It's dark, grotesque, and honestly terrifying. God here is depicted as a gray statue, with a hammer and chisel in one hand and the earth in another. We know that in the biblical book of Genesis, God creates the heavens and the earth. This is a clear nod to that. He also appears to be melting, with his body dripping into a sea of something below. Or he could be rising out of some primordial soup, slowly forming to reveal his divine shape. He seems to also have some spikes coming out of his back, which reminded me of the body on the back of Leviathan in 5-4. From the odd details on his head and chest, it can be inferred that he is wearing some kind of cloak and armor akin to Michael's, with a hood and breastplate, but it's simply too goopy to make out any real detail. Regardless of appearance, this is our first actual look at what the God of this world can actually look like. ULTRAKILL at its core is the story of a world with a flawed God, and this statue depicts the beginning of that world. I really am excited to see more of this guy. Anyway, it seems we have made it to the exit door. This level was pretty long, so it's finally nice to be able to put it behind us.
What?
Yeah, so this level does have some more to say. This part of the level is a clear depiction of the new peace, which is an era humanity had entered after the fall of the Earth Movers. It's the last thing they did before they had their own strange disappearance. And because this is fraud, the level wraps around itself being super vertigo-inducing. Or maybe the people of the new peace just lived in tubes like they did in Interstellar. Anyway, another thing to note, the sun is at one end and the moon is at the other. The moon and sun are both layers of heaven in Dante's Inferno, but here they are just out of reach, taunting us. This section is really awesome, and most reminds me of the Lust layer as we fight through buildings of the city around us. But the most notable bit is at the very end. We walk through a hallway that looks like the beginning of the level, and as we walk through the door, the wall asks you, "Isn't this where we came in?" 10 out of 10 environmental storytelling. Gold star. This does seem to confirm that the punishment for fraud is that the world makes no sense, and sinners would wander aimlessly forever just trying to make sense of it. Maybe some poor soul went through what we just did and went insane in this loop. Or it's just a really cool level detail. The TV leads us to the actual ending of the level, and as we walk through this bathroom for some reason, we finally beat the first level. Damn, this layer is long. 8-2 opens up with a game trailer worthy transition of falling through a reflection pool. This introduces very nicely the motif that this level is made around, mirrors, and going through them. This level takes place within the city we saw in 8-1, in office spaces and supermarkets. It looks super normal, like a place once lived in, which only adds to its eeriness. Exploring this office space actually has a lot of interesting details that have some crazy lore implications. Firstly, there's this meeting discussing the uses of operating systems for blood machines. It is strongly implied that the high-end blood machines operate on what the game calls Nocturnal OS. We've actually seen Smile OS 1 and 2 in the game before, one on the little interactable panels throughout the levels, and 2 on the terminals. Because the blood machines are seemingly considerably more complex than the terminals, it can be inferred that every single machine we fight runs on Nocturnal. Calling it Nocturnal OS and not just Smile OS 3 may have some down the line implications, but as of now we can't be sure. There's also this book recounting the life of people as the Earth Movers came to a halt. They say that they have been looking to find others who survived the hellish long night and are aiming to rebuild humanity. A man named Giles even found a long-lost relative. Also, we get the name of the second Earth Mover, 15H Kerr. The Earth Mover at 7-4's name had a double meaning, 1000 being interpreted as Sen, so the whole thing was Centaur, and M for the Roman numeral, so the whole thing was Mother. And so maybe this one also has a double meaning. Or maybe it's a Hypixel Skyblock reference, who knows. Anyway, we push forward and come back to this mirror, where nothing unusual happens. Then, one of these bastards break through, and the level gets its true start. The environments here are super weird and twisted, even more so than the last level. Even the encounters now have messed up gravity and geometry, making a confusing game even more so. And good god, it's awesome. The devs always find amazing ways to spice up environments and encounters, and this is easily one of the coolest ways to do so in my opinion. I hope they add cybergrind layouts that have this kind of stuff too. That would be even cooler. Pushing through more funky environments leads us to this room with a curtain in the middle. Why is there a curtain in the middle, you may ask? Well, the curtain is hiding this monstrosity. This is a Death Catcher, an enemy akin to the Idol. But while items are pure and protect life, Death Catchers are infused with hellish malice and remake death. These blood copies are slower and have less health, but can seriously make a fight more chaotic if not dealt with the right way. Unfortunately, they seem to come in boxes, so have fun dealing with these things. The world that opens a way to some limbo-like outdoor area with the world's most scenic toilet atop a mountain. This place has some office stuff strewn everywhere, which makes it seem like some kind of liminal space where the indoor is bleeding into the outdoor. It's a really odd choice to have these here. Through another mirror, the world flips to night, and we see a long building that's probably the way to more enemies. This is the supermarket that I mentioned earlier, which looks a lot bigger on the inside. The infinite recursion that we saw in 8-1 returns, and again, it's used to make a pretty simple fight way more interesting. Being able to hit stuff from across infinity is super fun and satisfying, and another reason that this game is the best in the genre. This supermarket is straight out of the New Peace era, and the posters on the wall point to this. They clearly are showing that the resources are scarce, and people need to ration the food so nobody starves. Meat especially seems super scarce, with a poster asking people to take a singular chicken wing to parties. Which, if you're anything like me, is the largest tragedy yet shown in this game. If you remember from Layer 7, the world is effectively a ball of ash, so this makes sense that as humanity rebuilds it would need to be very frugal, and these minor details help bring the idea really to life. After these hellish encounters, we encounter into another office space that folds in on itself. The most notable things here are another Death Catcher, and a board on the wall that ranks something called Societal Contribution Evaluation, with a bunch of names and scores on it. These names listed could possibly be Giles, Michelle, James, Jacques, Jean, Jorge, Chantal, and Marie. Whatever the categories are, I have absolutely no clue. But at the bottom it states ADTL, John Luck Precise Splice of Bov Tissue. Bov tissue likely means bovine tissue, which is a type of biological material derived from cows. So these people are probably scientists working hard to try to genetically uninstinct livestock for people to eat. Humans were probably the only animal to survive the Long Dark, so this makes a lot of sense. Trying to recreate livestock sounds super dystopian, but it's what the people have to do if they want to regain their place in the world. After a fight with the most messed up geometry, we make it back to the surface again, then back into the supermarket. This encounter has a crazy hole in the middle, and you can even see yourself through it. This room is really hard. Learning how to use the arena to your advantage is essential for the P rank, because this will be a major choke point if you're not careful. It also features some more advertisements featuring the fact that food is very scarce, further reinforcing that idea. Walking through the bathroom at the end of 8-1 for some reason leads us down a hole and back to where it all started. Past the and down the hall, we make it back outside and around the complex. The place looks more defunct than ever, with mist hanging in the air and cabinets that have fallen over. Looking towards the exit sign to guide us, it leads us to this. Oh, what the fuck? Yeah, so what? This means so much about our society. Anyway, the end of the level is probably just around the corner. What is that? What is that? That is the Mirror Reaper. the thing that's been stalking us from just out of reach this whole level. It's an amalgamated husk of bodies that exists between reflections. It's got lots of arms and does lots of damage, and it's really lots of fun. Yeah, this guy's really confusing the first few times. He's really fast too, and likes to stay right on top of you and pummel you to death. Keeping speed and distance is vital to survival here. At half health, he enters phase 2 and escapes into the large mirror on the wall. You can actually shoot him through the mirror, but his body still exists in the real world. The best way I've found to kill him is to pump as much damage as you can right behind you, because he's always following you. With enough skill and patience, you can put this thing down quickly. Alright, so what in God's name was that thing? The terminal has this to say. Its body is formed of multiple husks fused together in a twisted fashion, probably in immense pain. The 8th layer of hell really does seem to destroy the senses in irreparable ways, leaving monsters like this with seemingly no face, eyes, nose, or anything. The terminal leaves us with the heartwarming note that this is the only known inhabitant of this layer, meaning that everything else is probably so badly messed up that they are unable to be found or measured anyway. Lovely. The Mirror Reaper had been stalking us this whole time just out of reach. It was the one who put the reflection on puppeteer strings. This is pretty weird considering we still have a reflection in the boss fight, but probably hints to some greater force controlling us. Also important to note, there's this huge secret encounter in this level. Down here on the night side of the outdoor section, it leads to this big old place where we fight an insurrectionist and a bunch of death catchers. This fight is pretty awesome and really chaotic because so many things get revived, and there's a massive Portal 2 style falling pit in the middle. Afterwards, we enter the most confusing room ever with a mirror ceiling and a body with a white skull, who's probably human. There are numbers on the wall that when inputted to the elevator at the start will take you down to the secret level entrance. Also, in the mirror there's a book, and it has the most unsettling text yet.
I see Ulysses frozen upon the wine dark high sea. Eucharistic flesh and blood, born in pain. This is man. Even against the odds, writ by Adam, murder is in their nurture, the epistolary plosives of air raids, the open graves, massed corpses with crow-pecked sockets, the sights rest left unseen, insipid and insolent in so feared, as to grievers cry there will be no peace. See the nature of this symphony, 100 universes and choruses. Notes, so forth and nothing. No. I see hues clearly now, such shadeful sights to show you. The writer stays his hand and the story writes itself. You'll look into your love's eyes and see a stranger. Bellum omnium contra homines. Man is wolf to man. This antediluvian cruelty by seed you carry onward. Eye for an eye, each generation forgets the scars of the last. Nothing lasts. A view to a thrill, a vision of the future. I see to you, son of soul, eat, yearn for more. Over and over. Until all that remains is the knowledge that this was all your fault.
Alright, so this game is becoming Cruelty Squad. This is Hell again talking to us about the violence that humanity has caused. Telling us about war, torture, and how this violence exists in us because of how we are raised. The writer stays his hand and the story writes itself is in reference to God's disappearance, and how giving humanity control has led to their demise. This may point to God disappearing before the existence of blood machines, and that all the death caused by them is at no fault of their own. The third paragraph seems to point to humanity building on its suffering, and how in spite of all the death and destruction each generation has caused, the next one seems to always cause more. It's a vile cycle leaving everyone decimated. Eye for an eye points to this, as by taking the life of another you lose your humanity. Most importantly, however, is the last line, because it is all our fault. But it also says Son of Soul, which we know V1 does not possess. So maybe it's telling us as the player that it's our faults, that we push forward and kill and eat and destroy everything. We will consume until there's nothing left. And truly, what can stop us? Alright, why am I in the prelude? Yeah, this level's messed up. Reality is literally folding, bending, and tearing at the seams. Even the game itself seems to be breaking, loading the wrong level text. The first room is actually randomized, and it could be any level from the previous layers. A subtle nod that the game isn't just messing with V1, but you, as the person controlling V1. This level takes the twisted environments and explores them to its absolute potential. Literally every single fight is like this, and is really disorienting. Hallways flipping, parts of other levels peeking into the level, and enemies shooting around impossible corners. It really is a salvia trip. And unfortunately, our poor computers have to render this. They're the real machines in danger, let's be honest. Through some more undulating corridors, we find ourselves in a place that we may have nearly forgotten, the heart of Gluttony. I wonder who might show up.
You playing without sound? Oh, yeah, but you're. Who are you, bro?
These guys are the Powers, the followers of Gabriel. They're tough, quick, and heavy hitting. Everything that you could want in a new enemy. They're also the first non-boss enemies to be voice acted, which is really cool. They fight exactly like Gabriel did, but are much more vulnerable to parrying. While powerful, they are incomplete and only have one arm and one wing. They carry a brass arm around because they wish to appear more like Gabriel. The way they feel so pressured to honor the look of the Archangel points to Heaven being very much about image, honor, and hierarchy, and it's a very clever detail how this choice is used to convey that. Anyway, I don't have much to say about this fight because it's just Gabriel again. Just beat him up like we did to him all those layers ago. This level is still completely screwed up, with even more craziness happening further in the level, the other layers literally being mixed and stacked on top of each other. We get the usual final long level of the act thing, where we have to do two separate paths, one with a blue key and the other with a red. The red skull side focuses on the world spinning around you, with hazards, environments, and gravity all moving around like a Rubik's Cube. It's laggy and it's crazy and it's really cool. The blue skull side has the world shifting back and forth, changing the environment in ways that really break my brain. This place really has you fighting two different sets of enemies at one time. The final room of this branch is easily the coolest in the whole level, where the boundary changes with your movements. This fight is so cool. Like seriously, it's crazy that they're able to do this. 10 out of 10, seriously. If you do both paths, surprise, another secret encounter. These two ferrymen are actually really easy to kill, but the secrets they guard are really something else. On the desk, there's a book, confirming that they were trying to dupe cows like the billboard would have suggested in 8-2. Another name is mentioned, Chantal, who is on the billboard. Unfortunately, they do seem to be missing. Also, the earth remover is called Moo. Nice. Well, that's a pretty major reveal already. Looking into the reflection, we see a book with no words. Uh-oh. This book, again, is really something else.
Atavistic antagonist, Antigone with the wind, brother against brother in arms, other harms irrelevant collateral. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. War is ontological, peace is a failure of free will. Milvidi ducent homines persicula sanguinum. Drowning in denial, man set sail in search of a palingenetic simulacrum of Ithaca, uneaten afore the antediluvian, untouched by their own sin-stained hands. But death is arable, all growth is devourment, life feeds on life. Ibid. Ibid. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord, and the rest is violence. No. Even this is not gnosis. The spatio-temporal mind can conceptualize reality only in binary. Yes and no. Is and is not. The eye of Logos sees only a colorless existence in a monopotential world, its abstractions a charade of shadeless ones and zeros rearranged ad nihilum. Hedonic dialogues, simple shadows in a cave wall. No. There are 39 states of existence. Postfinity. Metatemporality. Extracausality. Reason and dialectics are axes in the garden of reality, shavings of semi-potential sufferings. Lucifer, my love. I shall gift to you all the agonies that can exist, and many that cannot.
Lucifer, the fallen angel. This is only the second time he's mentioned, and wow, he's in a rough spot, isn't he? This line is either stating that Lucifer is being tortured, or he's watching others be tortured. If it's the first one, the casting of Lucifer into the Infernal Den may have been recent, and Hell is molding him into the devil that we know him as today. Or, something in Lucifer is provoking Hell to cause more suffering, meaning Lucifer's banishment may have happened a long time ago. Either way, God's beloved kindness has now become God's hatred, and Hell is at the heart of its agony. Anyway, I'm glad the level's over, because I got a lot to say. Oh God, not again.
Okay.
Welcome to Matter Splatter Galaxy, I guess. This part came as a shock to literally everyone, because, well, it's just so out of left field. It's pretty clever how the game turned the start and end room, places that we always considered safety, into these fake outs. It's a clever detail that fits well with the motifs of the level. The gravity is messed up even more, and we are floaty and the platforms are few and far between. We have effectively unlimited space to maneuver though, so we can use it to our advantage. Beneath us is the Earth, grayed out and desolate. Around it are other planets, and most notably the Sun. Space, in Dante's Inferno, were the layers of heaven. Hell's showing us this is basically saying heaven is full of frauds. The planets, the stars, galaxies, and the nebulae are all here to reinforce this fact. It's a grand spectacle that exists to show who's really in control. This bit ends with a really cool fight featuring a tree of life, a power, and a dual power-up. Really fun, and an amazing way to send off the last full layers full level. Fraud has had a lot to say, but it's got one more trick up its sleeve that's yet to be seen. So let's get on to the final fight. This level begins in a super dark hallway, giving me flashbacks to 0-S. Fortunately, there's this vent here that lets you skip the whole thing. I feel like most people just did it like this, and honestly, I'm not even sure why this area exists. Climbing up the chute reveals the final and most twisted hallway we've seen yet. The way it twists adds a strong sense of unease, and it uses the same theater curtains that surrounded the death catcher. Sounds like something's about to go down. This elevator seems to be the way forward, but unfortunately it was designed by a civil engineer because it fails after 3 seconds. I can't believe we're in a Minecraft dropper. Anyway, V1 literally has wings, so we still have some pretty solid control while moving around here. Virtues and Providences spawn more as a way to teach us how the movement works than anything else. Giving us greater access to all 6 degrees of freedom makes these fights really cool and unique. And just as we get used to our new circumstances, it's time to get freaky. This is Garyon, Watcher of the Skies. We've seen it flying around in 8.1, and it's finally time to face him head on. It's a powerful demon to be sure, but he's never faced a fight like us.
This one got mine. What the fuck?
You know how you saw through,
Oh
you know how you saw through the roof in 8.3?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that was.
What?
Yeah, what? So all of Fraud was a lie? Fitting, I guess. Maybe the whole game up to this point was really just an act. This isn't even a new concept, as the Cybergrind is a made-up world created by the collective consciousnesses of the terminals. Maybe hell itself is just a vision of some higher power. Look, even backstage there are these statues too that would be props in the play. Man, leave it to this game to throw a 3-2 curveball like this. Seriously. The theater head motif had actually been spotted in every level of Fraud. In 8.1, we see this little theater in the room with 2 skulls, and in every level after, we can see it poking through the ceiling. But it's still so confusing. Garyon is right there, and he's really dead. So clearly something is real, but it's just hard to say what. Like maybe all theater kids go to hell? Seriously, I have no idea what this is trying to say. I guess we need treachery to shine some light on it. In the hallway, there is a movie poster depicting V1 as the main protagonist, with this title, City of the Dead Sun, which is likely a reference to the Earth Movers and how the lack of sun killed them. So maybe hell is all fake, but the stuff that happened on the surface is real? So many questions. And unfortunately, that's where the story wraps up so far. Yeah, it ends like that. Jump down the hatch and roll credits. This game's gotta finish up quickly or I'm gonna lose my mind. To wrap up this horrendously long video, I wanted to share some thoughts for what the final layer might feature. The devs clearly aren't sticking to Dante's Inferno as strictly, so for what the environment looks like is anyone's guess. Lucifer will probably make some appearance as well as the other angels, and I'd love for some crazy heavenly boss rush where we fight all 3 of the remaining archangels. Gabriel's story is still left wide open, but I highly doubt he'll be the final boss. He seems to be fighting some of his own demons, so to speak. I have a slight feeling that he may be our one and only ally come layer 9, because it would fit the theme and all. God is also a traitor in some ways, backstabbing himself and the world he created by casting his kindness into hell. So I'd imagine we'll see him down there too. And as for the Prime Soul, we literally only have scraps to work with. The only candidate mentioned by name is Ulysses, or by his more common name Odysseus. But there was way more evidence for the previous 2 by this late in the act. Maybe the devs don't even know, but I was really hoping to see some giant corpse somewhere down here. Also, Fraud is the first act to not contain any new weapons for V1, which again is odd. The mystery of the yellow arm unfortunately persists for now. ULTRAKILL's final act is truly a masterpiece of video game storytelling, and the story is not even fully unfolded. Violence and Fraud have told a story of war, death, rebirth, and death again. This world is broken, desolate, and barren of hope, and all that remains is the knowledge that this was all your fault. Thank you for watching.